topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
It's Arthi with another episode of Light Up Your Life, and I'm so happy, as always, to be with you all today. And if you tune in at a different time, thank you for taking a look. So I'm actually operating out of a hotel room today. Most of you are used to my background being my kids' pictures or something on the wall. So today is a different light altogether. I am really excited about today's episode because I have somebody really special to talk about a big passion for him and for me, which is education. And the great introduction that I want to have for you is Mr. Quentin Brown. Mr. Quentin Brown is somebody that I actually met approximately probably close to 10 years ago when I applied for a position at Communities and Schools. And Quentin Brown was actually the executive director at the Hampton Roads location for Communities and Schools, which is an excellent program that really helps to make sure that at-risk youth have a way to channel things through school support staff in the school setting and is really able to make engaging community collaborative opportunities for students and as well as staff to make sure that there is vital communication that's happening. So even though I didn't get that position, Quentin had allowed me the opportunity to volunteer with Communities and Schools, and I had gotten to do an event. And then fast forward years later, when I am looking at collaboration, Quentin was already one of my contacts on LinkedIn, and I reached out to him because he is doing phenomenal work in a different part now of the United States, where he is currently the executive director of an awesome organization called EduCare. And EduCare is a provider of early childhood services, again, servicing at-risk youth, and they are also a nonprofit as well as Communities and Schools. So Quentin has over 20 plus years of experience in nonprofit leadership, where he is able to take the message and mission statement of all the organizations that he works with and is able to really transform education and really to impact our youth, and also to make sure that the vital piece of executive directorship of grant sourcing, building, funding, and leadership skills continues to excel. Currently in Nebraska, within 2 years, Quentin has already established community collaborations where him and his wife, Carla, are a big part of the community to make sure they do outreach. He is part of a lot of executive boards. And without further ado, I really want to introduce you to an awesome person who is going to talk to us about leadership, education, and nonprofit work.
Hi, Artie.
How are you?
I am well, and I will say, just like you, I am sitting in a hotel room as well. And most people are used to seeing me with my EduCare T-shirt on or some EduCare images in the back. So anyone that's watching us familiar with seeing me, pardon me for not having my EduCare T-shirt on and not seeing those images in the back. But just like Artie, I'm on the road today, but wouldn't have missed this opportunity for the world. So I appreciate you having me on to talk a little bit about myself and the great work that's happening out in Nebraska.
Thank you, Quentin. And I really it kind of reminds me while we're both on the road, when you're really passionate about your work, no matter if it's for pleasure or not, it hits your heart so much that it's not even work.
Nope.
So I would love to talk to you. First question, how can you describe how you got into this role of being in, of course, I didn't describe earlier that you have a master's in business administration, right?
Public administrations. Yep.
Public, yes. So I always confuse the two, right?
It's all good. Most people do, so you're in great company.
Anyways, Quentin, regardless, there are a lot of different roles you could have taken with your education, your background, and what keeps calling you to this work where you do fall in early childhood and this mission work in education.
The funny thing is, I was sharing this story with someone, I don't know, maybe last week or a couple of weeks ago, that I got started in this work. It was actually by, I wouldn't call it accident, I guess divine intervention, if you will. And I spent years working in, I guess, the traditional fast food customer service, those types of, engagements with, direct customers, as a high school kid, and, it was fine. It gave me a ton of experience. But I think my trajectory changed when I started. So I grew up in a small town. At the time it was a town. It's now a city now, Suffolk, Virginia. And I started with the summer parks and recreation program, working with the 8 to 12 age group. I believe it was 8 to 12, 6 to 8 maybe. But I remember this young girl that I'm thinking about. She was 8 years old at the time. And she was having this a rough day, just like kids do. Nothing out of the ordinary. She was just having a rough day. And I told myself, I said, I'm gonna try something. And I've probably been working at this place. And again, this was a summer job, so I'd say I've been working there for a year, which in summer terms was about 3 months at that point. And I said, I'll try something. And I told her, I said, you know what? If I poke you in the center of your forehead, I bet I can, help you stop, feeling sad, and it'll cause you to smile. And of course, she's like, no, she's having a rough day, right? She's like, no, it's not going to work. But she afforded me the opportunity to give it a shot. And already I poked her in the middle of her forehead. Boop. And you can see where she's headed. She smiled and she laughed and she got out of her funk. And so I'm like, man, this is cool. I have this gift. So without fail, every time I did that, Artie, I can't recall the time where it didn't work. Every time a kid was having a bad day, I poked them in the forehead and they'd smile and things would turn around for them. And I took that as, again, divine intervention or calling or encouragement to get on a certain path. And I followed that path. And it has demonstrated great success from that point forward. So you asked the general question about how I got into this and how I remain. Well, I remain because of the difference and the impact that I can make when I put my finger on something, whether it's having a conversation with a single child, impacting an entire school of children, or, fast forward to today, impacting hundreds of children, whether it was back in Virginia or now in Lincoln, Nebraska, having the ability to impact children and families that are not always in the best of situations. And I make no judgment on anyone's personal situation. We are all, in most cases, we can find happiness in anything if we try. But sometimes the external factors are just too difficult and they can bring us down. And we need some encouragement and some help and a hand up, not necessarily a hand out, but a hand up to move forward. And that's what's kept me in this work, the ability. And I make no formal statement that I have the magic pill or the magic answer. But what I do have, I have, a mind that's working, I have a passion, I have hands that can be put to use. And over the past 20 years, that's just what I've been doing, doing the best that I can as an individual, just like you do the best you can to help people. And in some cases, seeking help when I need it too. So long way to answer your question with that. That's what brought me to and what kept me around.
That's awesome, Quentin, because a couple of weeks ago, we had Genevieve Petros, the director of Pajama Program, and her vision and her passion came from working with one child, and it transformed the rest of her life. And so hearing your story today just prompted me on that conversation, because you with this third eye, I call that third eye poke, of opening it and just reminding, like, it kind of humbled me to the experience that one child can shape the rest of your life, and you carry that all the way through. I just think it's incredible.
Absolutely. And that's usually how it starts. Some people come to this work because, it's a paycheck and they find success and they get paid. But others find this, similar to your prior, your guest, they find this work because sometimes it finds them, and it happens through that one-on-one engagement. And there was power in that engagement. And when you recognize and realize that you can extend that power to many, many more people, or, I don't know if I should call it power, but you extend that opportunity to many, many more people. And you find a way to harness that in a formal and effective way, sky's the limit. And now it's dare I say, an obligation for me to continue on this path, because I still have a lot more in the tank that I have to give, a lot more work that's out there that needs to be done.
Yeah, totally. Quentin, can we go back to your own life story and can you start from the beginning of time and tell us how it was to grow up in Suffolk, and like how you got on we kind of have the trajectory of like your work on where, but how did you even get to this point? And how does your story weave through from the beginning?
The beginning of time. Wow, no one ever asked that question.
I know. I ask deep questions.
You do. Sometimes you sit on these interviews and you have the general run of questions that generally the host goes through. So you kind of prepare. You change them based on the conversation. But that's a new one. You caught me off guard on that one. But I like it. Yes. So I grew up in Suffolk. Like I said, at the time it was a town. Born and raised in Suffolk. My mom, dad, thankfully and blessed, both still with me, both still together, living in the same home, which I think is great. So when I talk about going home, I'm not only going home to Suffolk, I'm going home to the home that I grew up in. Raised with a brother and sister. My sister's the oldest, and an older brother. And in fact, I don't know if he's watching, but my, I have a older brother and an older sister, but also an older cousin who's a couple of years older than me. And he's actually who my wife and I were spending time out in Denver with them this weekend, my cousin and his wife. But we were raised together. He was almost like a brother. But yeah, I just like the typical country kid lifestyle, playing outside until the not street lights, but the one street light came on when it was working. But we spent all of our days and nights or evenings outside, chasing light bugs and doing what rambunctious young boys do. My brother and cousin fighting all the time, and my brother bullying us. But what I will say, he always had our back. And to this day, as a matter of fact. But that's the home. Grew up and raised as a firm believer and God and following faith and religion, and that stays with me, my family today. It wasn't much to it. We didn't have anything fancy. We had this one bathroom house with 5 people in this home trying to find their own way and live their lives, but we made it work. And not only did we make it work, we enjoyed how it worked for us. It was our home, it was our family. And that was the upbringing I had. I was raised to respect people, hold doors for people, say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, you're welcome. All of those things that you feel that, those what do you call them? Those, I don't even know what you call them. They're just intrinsic now. But those manners, that's the word I'm looking for. Those manners that you should have as a young person, and those that stay with you growing up. And I've lived my life like that, by that. And at least I hope that I have. And I've tried that. And I've always said my one goal, when people tell me today, they say, Quentin, you do great work. You're doing good stuff for the community. I say, the one thing I've always tried to do when people engage with me, if they ever run into my mom, and this is no joke, I said, I don't know, this is a small world. If they ever run into my mother, I want my mom, I want the response to be, I want to make my mom proud. That's the goal. if they engage with her and they start talking to her about their engagement with me, I want her to feel full after that conversation and saying, I did something right. So everything that I do, my engagement with you today, Artie, if you ever run into my mom and tell her about this, I want her to leave that conversation saying, he just made me very proud. And that's how I live my life. But yeah, that's it. And like I said, started working at, just fast food restaurants to make some money between college or going to college and high school. But there's nothing really fancy to talk about. Some people come on and talk about these great trips that they've done and these magnificent experiences that they've had. While I have experiences that I'm thankful for and I've been blessed with, I can't tell you that I traveled multiple countries growing up, or that I stayed in 5-star hotels as a kid. That never happened. Frankly, it hasn't happened as an adult either. But it was my life. I loved it, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. It's made me who I am today, and that's the great thing about it, because I feel like the work that's being done is good, necessary work, and happy to do it.
Yeah. And again, when I see nonprofit leadership in its core, what I have found is folks who internally in their own personal lives feel very fulfilled. And so it's just an extension of themselves, right? So I see when we were having this discussion that all of your positions are an extension of yourself, is what it seems to me.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. At every point in my career, when I've made a move or made the decision to make a move, the question has been, do I have the ability to impact more? It's never, obviously if I make a move, I wanted to position me in a better position than I was prior. But the leading and driving question I've always had to answer is, am I able to impact more people in this role? And if the answer is yes, then I can get to the rest of it. And making a move out to Lincoln. So when I left Hampton Roads, well, not Hampton Roads, but Richmond, Virginia, in June of 19. Actually, oddly enough, I started June 26th at Educare Lincoln. So tomorrow would be exactly 2 years that I've been in Lincoln, Nebraska. But when I left Richmond, I was working at the state office of communities and schools. And don't quote me on this number, but at the time, I think throughout the state, we were serving or impacting, I think 40 some odd thousand children, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that was the case. But the point is, whether 40 or 30,000, that doesn't matter. I think you'll get the gist of it. But I was able to impact that many children with a very soft touch from a state level perspective. I wasn't doing any direct services. It was more technical assistance, supporting those that were going to work. But when I made the move to Lincoln, Nebraska, I asked the question to myself, am I able to impact more? And serving at Educare right now, we're serving, which is great. It's going to sound small compared to communities and schools, but we're able to impact over 170 children with early care and education services. And one would say, well, you've always asked the question, how do you serve more? And, obviously this is an extension of yourself because you're serving children and families of high need. But it's when the Lincoln community, when I tell people that this is a community that's prime for early care and education, that's an understatement. So while I'm not serving 30,000 or 40,000 children at a state level, I'm serving 170 plus in a high quality early care and education facility. The opportunity to impact thousands more throughout Lincoln and throughout the state, there's a ton of opportunity there. And that's not saying that I have to serve them, but I think having an influence on quality care and education is now the target for me.
Totally. Yeah. So Quentin, let me ask you, what are the skills that you feel when we talk about, I am really interested now in a lot of at-risk youth entrepreneurship, like really trying to get our what are the skills that you would say that you would really love to instill in our youth to start to rise to leadership roles that sometimes, for instance, even for myself, it took me until my 40s to realize I do have leadership skills. It just took a while to get there. But what would you say are some messages for our listeners, not only youth, but some of our adults who also need to be in some leadership positions?
Yep. So it's funny. I was going to say this. I'm working on just like many people, I'm working on a book, and there's a chapter in there about what I'm going to talk about. And I hope to have that done in the next 12 months, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that I would tell people, I think is, and whether it's youth or adults alike, I think it's simply, in 2 words, take risks. Because too oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this. This is not me, trying to sound preachy or talking to people. This is me, and I'm in this group as well. But I think for us, there is a ton of opportunity out there in the world. And I say the world, you can even say in your city for that matter, or even in your community. There's a ton of opportunity. And too oftentimes we wait for other people to do what we should be doing, or what we can do, or what we have the ability to do. The challenge is that we simply don't know that we have the ability to do it because we don't take the risk. We have the idea, we have the thought, we have the excitement about an idea. But if I'm talking to any youth looking to do something entrepreneurial, or even an adult, or even just to do anything, it's a matter of simply gain the skill and the courage to take risks. And what I share with my wife and people oftentimes is that I've gotten to a place where I'm now comfortable, or as much as I can be, comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's not anything I've coined. Many people say that. I'm sure I stole it from someone. But even this interview, I enjoy the idea of what is accomplished through this, but I don't enjoy looking at myself, talking about myself. That's like, I don't want to do that. It makes me cringe. But I know that it has to be done in order to get the message out about the work that we do, and encouraging of people to do and take on more risk. I make myself comfortable in a very uncomfortable situation for me. So to answer your question, I think it's a matter of just simply gaining the courage to take risk. And the good news is that once you take the risk, it's a win-win. It's not a win-lose. It's not take a risk and win, or take a risk and lose. It's take a risk and achieve what you thought you could achieve, or take the risk and don't succeed, but learn in the failure.
Yes.
It's a win-win.
Yes.
It's a win-win. You can't lose. If it's a calculated risk, now I'm not telling you when to go off and take a risk you think you can, I don't know. I won't make any examples, but there's some examples where you just shouldn't take a risk. There are some things that are physical in nature. There are some things that are not physical in nature, and there's risk in everything. So all risk should be calculated, right? Don't do anything that's foolish. It's calculated risk. And once you've calculated the risk and the possible outcomes of that risk, all possible outcomes, take a step forward, make a move, either succeed or learn from your failure.
You just reminded me, I tell my husband all the time, can you ever just play a game for the love of the game, right? Like, right? Yep. Like, it's like the idea that you're bringing up is for the love of the game.
The love of the game.
So win-win. And I'm really just marinating on that thought of win-win, because we do look at things as win-loss.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do look at failure, and then the risk calculation. I'm so glad you brought up risk analysis, because I don't know a lot about risk analysis, but I just can tell you I do know about risk assessment working in hospital settings. You always look at the risk, right? But
yes.
The fact is, at the same time, you use the word calculation. By the time that you have that gut feeling, it sounds like that I'm hearing you say you have this gut and a little bit of that risk calculation, and you're saying go for it and look at it as a win-win. And that is a beautiful thing, because you're right. I don't think anyone in leadership roles has ever said, I didn't succeed without having some failures. You included, right?
Absolutely. You can't aspire to any level of success, whatever your definition of success is, whatever that is, right? You cannot aspire to any level of success without the expectation of failure. And you know how many times I've been turned down? Oh my gosh, we don't have enough time.
Yes.
But and you know, case in point, I applied for a job, internal promotion at a prior employer, and similar to you made the comment prior on, the opportunity at communities and schools didn't work out, but you know, it didn't stop you from achieving what you needed to achieve. And this team turned me down. They said I was too young, didn't have enough experience. Just didn't know anything. But I had been there for years. I did my time, and I was, in terms of the person I was applying, the other person applying, I was there longer than they had in the bag. It was mine to lose, and I did lose it because I didn't get the job. But that in that same breath, I got another call, and the same reasons that I was turned down for this job were the same reasons that I was presented the opportunity for the next job, which opened up this trajectory that I've been on ever since. So, and that's just one of many. You should expect failure if you're looking to succeed at anything. Even
that
if
needs to be a quote in your book.
Yeah? Consider it done.
Yes, because nobody ever says, go ahead and set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Do it. Do it.
I mean, have you ever heard of it? I always hear set yourself up. We tell our children, my own children, we tell children we never say set yourself up for failure, like in a positive connotation.
Yes.
Why can't it be a positive spin on that word?
Yeah. And can you imagine a world, and we're talking a world of good. Let's take out the bad, but a world of good, all good, passionate people saying, you know what, I'm prepared to fail. And so when that failure happens, all of I don't feel down about it. I don't feel discouraged. I don't run away from the opportunity that I had because I knew at some point I was going to fail. This is just par for the course. So if I know I have to fail an average of 5 times, all right, let's get 2 out of the way. All right, I failed twice. Now there's 3, there's 4, there's 5. All right, now it's time for success. And obviously there's no hard formula. I'm sure some smart person could come up with something out there. But you're right. It's be prepared for it. Set yourself up so that when you do fail, you're already ready to learn from those mistakes and why you didn't get it. Because I learned a lot from that failed attempt at that job. And what I learned, the primary thing that I learned is that never let someone else's statements about you determine who you think you are. Because they told me I was too young. The other organization said, hey, you're the right age. The other employer said, you haven't been here long enough. The other employer said, now's the time to move. So their statements about me, I could have easily allowed them to bring me to a very, very negative space. And I did for a short period until I started to realize this thing that, it's par for the course. It's to be expected.
Yeah. Yes. I think you're reminding me of how we have to empower our youth with these messages of when it comes to passion and purpose, that failure, it's not a failure. It goes with the territory, and it is a formula, I think, to make everyone realize it's going to happen. It's part of the life circuit. So why not embrace it?
Embrace it. Take the stigma out of it.
Yes. Quentin, can you talked about faith. Can you talk about faith and leadership and what role that plays in your leadership roles and how that carries you?
Oh gosh. There I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands. I don't know how many executive directors out there running organizations. And while there are many beliefs across the board, which is great and fine, I think it makes this world fruitful. If they tell you they don't have faith in something that's moving them across the finish line or towards the finish line, they're probably holding back. And again, whatever that faith is, faith in anything. Because so speaking for myself, I know part of my responsibility, people ask me what I do, what my job is. In very simple terms, it's to keep the lights on. What does that mean? It means to make sure people understand the work that we do enough so that they want to support it and engage, but also ensuring that we're producing high quality results so people have something to engage and support in. But at the end of it, I have to make sure that we keep the building open, we keep the lights on, we keep high quality, passionate staff hired and trained and professionally developed. And the point is, all of that costs money. And different times throughout the year and different times throughout history, sometimes money is, well, I won't say it never grows on trees, but people are more giving with their resources. And in some cases, people are not so giving. And when people are readily giving, it's great for all, because those dollars, in most cases, like Educare, those dollars are going to an organization that's demonstrating quality results for that investment. In times when it's difficult, despite the impact, despite the results, when people only have $1 to give and there's 100 organizations out there seeking that $1, faith is the only thing that keeps me going when they say no to Educare. Because guess what? I have people that are showing up, people that have families that they have to support through the employment that they have at Educare. And if I can't bring that dollar in the door to support them to do this critical work for other families, the results are perpetual. I mean, you talk about the impact on the family that's working, but also the impact on the family that was receiving supports from that employee. So it's not the buck stops at the employee or the buck stops at the family. So when times are hard, it is only faith that gets me beyond 2, 10, 15 no's to make that 16th ask in support of the work that we do. Without faith, oh my gosh, it couldn't happen, because it is such, this is such a space that goes through its ebbs and flows. And when things are low, when things are down, there's no one else in the organization I can really talk to, because when you're serving as executive director, you are the only executive director. There's some organizations that have co-executives, but in most cases, you are the only one in that organization. So when things are hard, you can't turn to your peer necessarily and talk about how difficult it is. You have to figure out something or have faith in something, some greater thing beyond yourself that you believe firmly that has greater control, greater power, greater authority over you, that with enough belief and enough faith that you will get pulled through. Now, we make plans as organizational leaders, and we should make plans. We have to make plans, that otherwise nothing gets done. But sometimes those plans are made with the best intentions, but when the wind blows, that plan can go out the window. And what do you have left? What do you have left? Just ask yourself, if all of your plans go out the window, what do you have left? And that's what faith does for me in this work. It pulls me along. It is the greater presence around myself that allows me to stay fueled, even despite challenging times, to continue doing this work, because I know there's a greater service beyond myself that has to be done.
You're so tied to your mission, like to the mission, you can tell, which is what I have always seen in great leaders, especially in nonprofit work, when they're tied to their mission. I keep bringing this purpose and passion, like this comment over, and so I'm just thinking, for you, was there ever a turning point that you thought, I don't want to be a nonprofit, I just want to switch and go? Or, because as we know, sometimes there's not a lot of big bucks in the role of, so I'm just curious, in your story, did you ever have that trajectory where you did wonder, and what kept drawing you back in?
So the interesting thing is, I've never had the idea of leaving nonprofit. But I'm going to come back to a point, though. Early on, it's years ago, I did have the feeling like, how long do I want to do this executive director thing? How long do I want to keep that up? And I'll tell you why in a second. But when it comes to the cost, the income side of things, what and that is a common trend, certainly for frontline people working in nonprofit work. Sometimes it pays, sometimes it's the benefit, sometimes it's both. That's challenging, and it's the passion and only the passion that keeps you going.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that, it does what I there is opportunity in this space when you're at the front line. So over the next several years, and actually I think we're in it, over the next several years, we're going to see a lot of leaders move on beyond at the executive level in nonprofit work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for anyone that's on the front line of nonprofit work, if you have an aspiration and you're at the critical point where you're like, you know what, I like you said, this, the income just isn't that. I have to find something else that's going to make more money. There are going to be opportunities for growth in the nonprofit sector. It doesn't matter which industry you're in, but in the nonprofit sector over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of opportunities open up, not necessarily from new nonprofit organizations, but simply through current executives that will begin to retire. And there's some that I hope hold on well beyond retirement because they're doing some critical work. But there's some that simply want to take more time spent with grandkids. They want to travel the world, and that's great. And that's going to open up a lot of opportunities for frontline nonprofit employees and team members to begin strategizing today and making plans today on how they're going to move into those roles. So that's my bid to say any good, solid person out there in this work who's thinking about leaving, if you can hold on a little bit longer, just hold on, because we need you and there are going to be opportunities for you. Now, what I mentioned earlier, while I've never considered really leaving nonprofit work, I have considered leaving the executive leadership role because it's hard. And I don't say that to boost anything that I've done or accomplished, because honestly, there's still a ton for me to learn and accomplish. I have a mentor today that I work with, and we meet and we talk now virtually once a month, because there's still so much that I have to learn. But when I entered this work, I didn't realize how hard it was. It's managing people, it's managing programs, it's managing income, it's managing strategy, it's managing a vision and stakeholders who everyone has an idea on how the program can be successful, and how do you marry their ideas with what the mission is and find a connection point and then roll that into the program. And all of these things are happening each and every day. We're not for profit, but at the end of the year, we better be able to show that we brought in enough revenue to cover expenses. And then in addition to that, we better make sure that the return on investment for that income demonstrates the work that we're doing is working with people. We're not making, widgets or, bottles of chapstick that if you get the science down one time, you do it a million different times and now you're successful. No, we're dealing with people. Every day, an individual person is different. And you layer that on to 100 or 1,000 different people every single day. No day is the same. I can set up a machine and produce the exact same can of I don't want to give the brand name, but your lip gloss, or the other name, whatever you want to call it, your chap stuff.
Yeah.
You can make 1 million of those. You set up your machine and you do it 1 million times. We can't do that. We have to show up genuinely and authentically every single day to meet the needs of each individual person. So when I tell you I thought about leaving the executive level, that was why, because it was just so much to manage. But thankfully, and obviously I stayed with it, and I have no intention on leaving, because why? I understand risk, and I understand how to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and you make it work.
So you carry those two as part of your mindset, is what you're saying. Like it's just part of your self-talk in a way.
I don't think about those outwardly. They are now part. I used to at a point in time. So all right, Quentin, get comfortable. It's an uncomfortable situation. You have to do it now. It's just simply part of who I am. So I don't necessarily carry them around.
Mhm.
They're now part of who I am. And again, I make no affirmations that I am at the end of where I'm going or I've grown to my limit. I am on the front end of this executive work, and there's still a ton for me to learn, and some failures that would be made, but I'll learn from them and grow from them.
Right. I am glad that you mentioned the fact that it's all a learning curve still. Sometimes I think when people enter any work, especially a lot of our career switchers or anyone who's approaching, they always think the 20 plus year folks feel like they know it all, or they do know it all. And so for you to present 20 plus years of experience and say, I still am with my mentors and still learning, is very humbling to those who are listening in. And really, I think probably humbling to you to even say out loud and hear yourself say it, I imagine.
No, it is. It is. And it is 100% true. Just working on some things this past week, in real time and realizing, we were able to correct them, but realizing that there were mistakes that I made on the front end, that if I would have done things slightly, in a slightly different way, the outcome probably would have been 10 times better. It's nothing detrimental, nothing like that, but just taking an opportunity to learn from everything, because the little one today could be the big one tomorrow. And if I write this little one off today and say, no, it's nothing, I don't need to spend time dissecting that, well, it's going to show up again and in a much bigger way. And if I don't learn from it today, the same result's going to happen, but the impact is going to be so much greater. So if I don't humble myself and recognize and acknowledge that I'm still learning, oh gosh, I can make I wouldn't last very long. I wouldn't have lasted this long.
Yes, I imagine. And I think that's what I think is important for people to hear, the fact that no matter how many years of experience, time is always a learning curve within, no matter it just, and especially, Quentin, they say that there's at least 50% of our population at this point are definite career switchers, which means not even in the same, people are catastrophically changing industries in a good way too. And also because of shifts that are happening, and especially post-COVID, we're seeing that a lot, where people have really had a chance to look at their sole purpose of what they want to do with their time. And so I think you're reminding everyone, no matter how many years, months of experience, that you're still going to be on this learning curve.
Yep, absolutely. And you said the key word, months, because you're right. You may have some viewers watching this and saying, oh my gosh, I'm only 6 months into this, and he's talking 20 years and he's still learning. I'm just going to give up. No. Don't give up. No, you'll never. If you give up because you feel like you don't want to learn for life, well, you probably should. And I don't tell people to give up often, but because you're going to get frustrated in this work, and I'd rather you do something you're not frustrated in, because you don't want to get frustrated in this space for long periods of time. You'll burn out. You won't last very long, and bad things will happen. But it's all part of the process. You'll learn at 6 months. You'll learn at 6 years. And while I'm not there, I suspect you'll be learning at 60 years. I'm fortunate enough to have some impact somewhere in 60 years, or at the 60-year mark. And if I do, I'll still be learning then, because the world's always changing.
That's right. Quentin, we have a few minutes left. So can you share, also, you do a lot of volunteer work in your community and you're on several boards. Can you just share what that experience is like and how it is? Because you do have a lot of work that you do have to show fiscally. You have a lot of work to demonstrate numbers and evidence-based and making sure that everything. So can you take a few minutes to share how that experience is for you and what that looks like, and all the different hats that you wear outside of just the one organization you're affiliated with?
Yeah, it's all about service. There are skills that I possess. Again, still learning, but there's some skills that I possess that can be of use outside of the walls of Educare Lincoln, outside of high quality care and education. And when called upon, now time limitations are there and they're real. So you have to pay attention to how much time you have to give. There are only 24 hours in a day. But when the time is available and I'm called upon to lend some service, some skill set, something that I've demonstrated that I can do well, when called upon to lend that in a volunteer way, I I feel almost obligated to do it because assuming now certainly you have to check the mission and assume you believe in the mission of what this organization is doing. If it's good, solid work, and they need whatever help that I can lend to do that work better and hold themselves more accountable to the people and the families that they're serving, I got to do it. I got to get in there and put my finger on the pulse. And I said earlier, I went from serving 40,000 to serving 170 within Educare. Not only is the ground fertile for early care and education, but through this board support and board work that I've been afforded the opportunity since moving to Lincoln, Nebraska, now that number begins to balloon. It's a soft touch, it's indirect touch, but the 170 at my organization, the 500 at this other organization, the 10,000 at another organization, now that number moves exponentially because I've taken all of those skills from serving 30 or 40,000 and starting them in a place where I have an opportunity to serve so many more in greater ways or more impactful ways. It's dare I say fun. It's hard work. Don't get me wrong, it's hard, but it is fun knowing that I have the ability to lend some skill set to those that I can help. Critical, difficult, hard work, but I do enjoy it. And the people I meet, it's great. I meet a lot of great people serving on boards and commissions.
That's great. Quentin, to wrap up, where can everyone find you? And also, can you give us some parting thoughts on what message would you like to leave today? And this book, when it does come out, we'd love to have you back to talk about your book. So now you need to make it happen quick.
Now there's some outwardly pressure now. I put it out there. I got to do it.
You got to do it. It's on air.
I will let you know, and I would love to come back, and I appreciate the opportunity. So let's check that box. That's done. People that want to find me, they can find me at educarelincoln.org. If you want to email me directly, you can email me at quentin.brown@educarelincoln.org. And I don't think this one is listed here, but certainly you can search my name on LinkedIn, connect with me there. Parting words for people or for all and myself. Again, this is not enough for me to talk to people. This is me at a round table talking with people about myself as well. But the parting words that I will leave is, whether you're looking at executive leadership, nonprofit, youth service, or just simply being a human being, know who you are, believe in yourself, and go forth and be great. That's it. Every day is going to be different. The way I wake up every day is I take one step at a time. I have a plan laid out, but at the end of the day, I just like you, me, and everyone else in this world, we're taking one step or making one move at a time. And whether you're in a challenging situation, just riding the wave, so to speak, or feel like you're in success, one step at a time. Get out of that negative place one step at a time. If you're in, as you might define, or someone may define it as mediocrity, one step at a time to find out where you need to go next. If you're highly successful and you're trying to figure out what's next for you, one step at a time. So go forth and be great.
Love it so much. Thanks, Quentin, so much for your time today.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I definitely will be back once we figure this out.
I know. You got to do it now.
We'll do it. Thank you.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Light Up Your Life. And as Quentin reminded us today, that life is about service. And so serve your purpose and come forth, whatever that is. And I love the fact that we talked about risk today. Everything is a risk, and you just have to jump in with both feet. I know most people love the pool. I've been at the pool a lot, and you just got to jump in. So just go forth and, like he said, be great. All right, everyone, have a great week ahead or whenever you tune in. And my light shines for the light in you.